The James Show Podcast.
Man, sometimes I just watch the news all weekend. I just can't wait to get back in the studio. Let's go. Because I don't even know what to start with today. I mean, I know what to start with. That's just a clever thing to say. Because I really have 4 competing stories that could be a top headline. Number one, we just can't forget about the flood recovery. I mean, flood recovery, still the top story just because of the human toll and the tragedy and the cost and the change of life. The fact that it happened in our backyard, the fact that it happened, and maybe if it doesn't indirectly affect you, it affects some of your neighbors. That's for sure. At this point, we all know somebody who knew someone who was down there or who used to go there or has a second house kind of around the corner. Or, there's a few guys that we work with and that have a connection down there. So that's still huge. And I'm kind of getting sick to my stomach at this point because I'm really feeling sorry for the first responders. I felt real sorry for the families last week. And look, it's not like I don't care about them anymore. But we're at the point now to where, over 120 something confirmed dead, still 170 something missing. And so now we're in this just god awful part of the recovery phase here to where you're not going to find any more survivors. And think about the grown men and some women out there, but usually this is a job that's reserved for men in our society. Think about these first responders who are now going out and finding bodies. And so how would you like that to be your job? You think your job's a little stressful? You think your job is a pain in the neck? I gripe about my job sometimes, but it's nothing compared to what these guys are going through right now. Have you ever dug a 12-year-old girl out of the mud? Her body? No? Can you even imagine it? You can't. There's things that you just can't imagine. You understand that? Like, unless you have some sort of mental problems. Like, if I gave you a pair of scissors and told you to cut your small finger off and I would give you $10 million, you can't do it because your brain just can't process that. Most people can't do that. Most people can't think about hey, if I said, imagine your kid dying in front of your face, you couldn't do it because your brain wouldn't let you process that information. Right? I never really thought about one of my kids dying until he was laid up in Children's Hospital with kidney failure a couple years ago. And that was an ugly part of my brain that I never want to access again. And that's the ugly side of humanity, the death side of humanity. Just reminding you not only of your own mortality, but the fact that we live in a fallen world and all of us and good people die for no reason. Bad people go on unpunished for the rest of their life. Fidel Castro died of natural causes in his 90s. This is the kind of world we live in, where Castro can live a full, long life, but some 13-year-old Christian girls who want to just go have fun for the summer lost theirs. Not a fair world we live in. Now, think about the guys that are down there right now, going through the rubble, trying to find the 170 people missing. Because at this point, I think most of those are going to be, presumed dead, if not, their bodies found. And you don't want to be the guy digging them up. Who wants that job? Who signs up for that job? You don't. I don't. I'll tell you who does. Heroes. Heroes sign up for that job. They're not wearing capes. They're not wearing tights. They'll never get recognized. Their names will never be in the paper. You will never know their name. You will never see their face. But that's what real heroes are. And look, from the point of view of sort of like the Christian worldview, it's not even really charity or altruism unless it's done anonymously at your own cost. That's God's work that they're doing down there. Not me up here talking on the radio, being a smart aleck, trying to have a good time, just trying to entertain you while you're in your car. Those are the hands of God down there. Because there's parents who are never going to see their daughter again. And the only thing worse than having some volunteer go find her and dig up her body and bring her back to you is for it never to be found again. So my God, what important work they are doing. Not important like it changes the world or your life's going to be any different. But for each family, it's the most important thing in the world. We have like 120 crushed families so far, and it might double. So I'm not forgetting that for 1 second. I just want to remind you, if you would like to help, WBAP.com has a list with links to all kinds of different organizations right here in your own backyard in Texas that are doing God's work right now. Some of them are picking up the bodies. Some of them are helping people, the survivors, cope with the aftermath. Some are helping clean up. Some are helping rebuild already. Some are helping with the pets. But if you want to be one of those helpers, if you want to be the hand of God and get no credit for it, this is going to be at your own cost. Well, I'm not going to say your name on WBAP. Your face isn't going to be on the TV. But if you just want to do the right thing to people who need it, if you want to be an angel, Go to WBAP.com, and it's still in the headline rotator. It'll be there for a while. Please go do something about it. But coming up on the James Show, my first guest, Raven Harrison, and I are going to jump right into all the political stuff going on. Because other than that being a top story, and rightfully so, I think right under it are three huge stories that could be in the history books. Number one, that's still illegal immigration and the reaction to actually deporting people who are here illegally. It's gotten to a level of comedy. This is actually funny. There was another congressional delegation that went to another ICE detention facility, and I'm going to play you, after Raven, I'm going to play you Debbie Wasserman Schultz at Alligator Alcatraz, just pretending to find the conditions abhorrent and trying to convince you, and with all kinds of just extra adjectives and exaggerations thrown in there about how terrible it is. And it's actually funny because it doesn't really sound that bad. It kind of sounds like, yeah, that's sort of what we all expected, Deborah. But on top of that, the big story over the weekend was the Epstein list. The DOJ had got you all excited because last Thursday they had tweeted out or put on True Social or somewhere it was reported that they are reviewing the Epstein files for release. It's like, wait a second, that's the day after you said the Epstein list doesn't exist. It was the top trending search all weekend, the Epstein files. And everyone is throwing in their opinion over the weekend. And I have documented like 8 different angles on this. And I'm going to see which one you agree with the most. And then also I'm going to talk with Raven in the next segment. The New York Times had a report that's not going to get a whole lot of attention, but I think you would love this. Where in the New York Times, they said Biden orally approved. Yes, he reviewed and approved orally every single pardon and commutation. Not believable. There's 4,200 plus pardons that were signed, most of which were by the auto pen. And almost all of which, all but 25 of them, because I looked at the whole database, all but 25 happened after the election. So you mean to tell me after the election, this guy got briefed on 4,175, at least 4,175 cases, got all the details, gave oral instructions to, if you're going to do that, why not just sign it yourself? If you have time to hear all the cases, you have time to sign it. You can sign it while they're explaining it to you. It's so not believable. But what this means is that all these pardons, I think they might get thrown out. I don't even know where to start. First, Raven Harrison, first off, welcome back to the show. She is a conservative pundit, is the nice way to put it. I would say flamethrower. Also a candidate for Congress. Welcome back.
Thank you, James. Good to be here.
Okay, I want to start. I mean, I have to start with anything. I want to start with your thoughts on the Epstein list. I don't even want to set you up on what I think because I don't want to lead the witness here. Just what's your thoughts? Because this was the biggest trending story over the weekend. This was the #1 Google search over the weekend.
Yeah. And again, I'm like many that I want the answers of it because there's some serious crimes that were committed on that. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of innuendo going around. So I'll just tell you what I believe and what makes the most sense. I do not believe Trump is on the list. I believe that because if that was even remotely true, Biden, they would have thrown him under the jail when he was in office if they had any inkling that he was on it. What I do believe right now is they're making this a political show in terms of whoever it is on that list. Now, Alan Dershowitz had made a comment that there are some legitimate people that may be lamed in there, that people who didn't do anything but are grouped in there, and he's worried about blowback. I don't know if that's what it is, but that door has been open and it can't be closed. We have to know who is on that list. We have to know who it is. So that's where I land, is for transparency.
Well, you know
if he wants to wait and prioritize something else, but we want to have it. I want it all of it.
You know, that's one of the takes I'm going to bring up, the Dershowitz take on it. I can just play that real quick. I had it prepared.
Okay.
I didn't know you were going to say that, but to catch everyone else up.
So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed. And they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. But I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything.
Yes, and yes, and
Yeah.
all of the above. And I'm sorry, when you've gotten too high of a rank, I don't care who you are, politician, whatever. If you're at that high of a rank that you feel like you get a second tier of justice, if you're on that list, there's got to be a way to separate. Alan Dershowitz was Epstein's lawyer. I don't know if many people know that. Well, he has a legitimate. He's right. He can't break the confidentiality. He'd never work again. But this is exactly the kind of garbage that the American people are fed up with, that there's rules for thee and not for me. And we need to know who was on that list. There are victims, there are rape and traffic victims that are on that list, and we have to know. And Bondi, all of these people have opened that door, and now you can't expect for the American people to sweep it under the carpet. It could be a timing issue, but we want to know everybody who was on that list.
Amen. I want to know everyone. Well, look, I understand that there's some people who are just in the flight logs and they didn't go to the island and they didn't do anything nasty. There's probably some people that are on the flight logs that went to the island and maybe they weren't there for one of the underage rape parties. I don't know. I guess it's possible, if not probable, they could have just gone fishing. But, I'm ready to, they're like, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Yeah, I do. Just release all the information. We'll let the little internet ninjas do their thing and we'll figure it out our damn selves. What I find totally unacceptable is just hiding it forever. And look, Dershowitz, why don't you just go ahead and start naming names? You'll never work again? Fine, retire. It would be the right thing to do. The next big story is the story from the New York Times on the Biden pardons, where the New York Times are covering for him. They're like, yeah, well, we talked to him, and he said that he orally confirmed each one of the pardons / commutations. And so I went and I looked back at the database on when all the pardons happened. Only 25 happened before the election. So 4,175 at least happened after the election. So really, he got briefed and pardoned on all 4,000. And if he's going to take the time to get a briefing and a pardon, then he has time to sign them all. So I don't believe that for a second.
Well, correct. It's bull spit. So what they are basically,
she said spit, FCC.
I said spit.
Good Lord, that's close.
Everybody from Texas knows that was spit. So it was, but yeah, that's what they're trying to cover now, because everybody who covered for him has a credibility issue. They all knew that they had elected the walking corpse and they put him up anyway. They covered for him. They defended him sharp as a tack. I was just with him. He was chattering away. Garbage. We all saw him on that debate. Okay, trying to figure out where the heck he was. And whoever thought it was okay to hate Trump enough to put our national security at risk, okay, by having a dementia patient at the helm, you're part of the problem too. So that is absolutely garbage. Biden doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. And, if I was in charge, Jill would be brought up on charges for elder abuse for allowing this to continue. And instead of allowing this man to kind of retire with, I'll put dignity in air quotes, but for the end of the day, that's where we need to, and this is the kind of trash we have to take out of the house, the actual people's houses. This is not how we should be running a government. This is ridiculous.
Can you give me 30 seconds on the congressional visit to Alligator Alcatraz? We're talking about, can you believe they're in cages and they have a toilet and a sink in the same unit? And it's like, yeah, that sounds like every detention facility ever.
Correct. That's like a prison. So, and it's better than what they got with the foil blankets under Obama and Biden. So they can spare we're the environmentalists, the alligators, hopefully aren't going to be even fed by anybody. But that's what prison is. It's not supposed to be a resort. And you can self-deport. For the ones who are really unhappy about it, self-deport, come back the legal way, come back the proper way that many, many, many immigrants have done the right way. And you will be welcomed with open arms, not open jaws from an alligator.
Oh, I see what you did there. Open jaws. That was a beautiful play on words. All right. This is Raven Harrison. You can find her at ravenharrison.com. How's your campaign going?
It's going great.
When's your primary?
And thank you for asking. It's next August, but we've got time to get the work done.
All right. So still plenty of time on that. They do it so close to the midterms?
They do. Yes, but we got to win this in the midterms. We got to get this right.
All right, well, we'll talk about that more as it gets closer. Raven Harrison, ravenharrison.com. First, let's go ahead and establish that, of course, there's an Epstein list. This whole idea that there is no list. We have no idea what you're talking about. It belies credulity because, number one, what was he arrested for then? What is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for right now? Sex trafficking. To whom? Nobody? To Casper the Friendly Ghost? Was it a figment of their imagination? Was it just the intent to traffic, but they didn't actually pull it off? No. Even if it's not written out in a succinct one-page Microsoft Word file or some PDF, there's clients. And the idea that, well, we don't know who they are and we'll never know who they are, that doesn't sound believable either. Why don't you just go to Ghislaine Maxwell's cell right now and be like, name some names? Why don't you go to the lawyers who are representing Jeffrey Epstein, including Alan Dershowitz? Say name names. Why don't you go to the lawyers that were representing Ghislaine Maxwell or the prosecutors in the same cases? People know. Everyone's hiding it. Don't like it. Don't like it. It's not believable that there is no list and there's nothing to see here, folks. Just move on. No, I don't think I will move on. I know it doesn't affect my life one whit. It doesn't affect your life one whit either. And so the idea that people are like, well, this just isn't important. I get it. On a personal level to my day-to-day life, yeah, no effect. But to say it's not important to know that our government is controlled by a worldwide ring of pedophiles, kind of a huge story. And when you look back at history, this is kind of a normal thing. You know, the most psychotic, at least sociopathic people are drawn to government. They crave power. They love telling other people what to do. I don't have that gene. Every once in a while, someone's like, you should run for Congress or you should run for mayor or you should run for... No, I don't like telling people what to do. I don't even want to be the boss at the radio station, right? I don't want to be the head coach. I want to be the quarterback. But for that pattern where they always get away with it to just be disrupted and ended today on our watch, that would be historic. They would put in the history books, all of human history up until 2025. This elite ring of global pedophiles was pulling the strings behind all the major politicians and controlling everything and just getting away with it all they wanted to up until 2025. Because think of how great we think of the generations in the middle of the 1800s that said, for all of human history, slavery has been a thing, but it ends on our watch. There will be no other human beings owned by a human being, and we're going to stand against it, no matter what it takes. And I don't care if we have to go to a civil war and have 600,000 casualties, deaths and injuries and whatnot. It ends here. And people put their foot down and they drop their tribal alliances. They're like, I don't care. I don't care if both the Democrats and the Whigs are both okay with it. We're going to start our own party and we're going to end this. And that'll be the driving force of it. And that's where we got the Republican Party. So I want that to happen now. I want our generation to have some sort of stamp that's positive in the history books besides inventing the internet and AI and all the other fun stuff we've invented. I would like to end that whole pedophile thing. And this Jeffrey Epstein thing, while it doesn't affect your personal life or your family one bit, this is huge for the history books. And not only is it huge, it's kind of an interesting storyline here. A lot of people have some opinions on it. And I was compiling them over the weekend because I was watching Google Trends. This was the number one search story all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today. So let's go through some other people's context here with the Epstein list. I'm going to start by explaining why I'm talking about this. Harry Inton talks about how this is a hot topic.
Donald Trump would love this story to go away, but in fact, interest is climbing higher and higher, to quote Jackie Wilson. Look at this. Google searches for Epstein up 1,200% this week versus last. And get this, it is currently the top topic search with Trump on Google alongside his presidency. So Donald Trump normally, leans into stories in which there's controversy, like tariffs, for example. This is a story in which he's trying to get away from basically saying, why is anyone still interested in this story? But the bottom line is people are very interested in this story to historic degrees, at least this week.
So that makes this new deflection campaign coming out of Team Red very interesting. We saw Team Blue have the list for 4 years under Biden and not do anything about it. And so we all thought, well, this must be really damning for Team Blue. And then we have Team Red go take over, and they didn't exactly release it immediately, did they? So it must not be just damning for Team Blue. It might be damning for Team Red, too. It might be damning for both of them. Here's a Republican representative. I think he was on CNN as well. Or no, wait, was this Fox News? Anyway, Representative Mike Lawler doing the old deflection like, I don't see why people care about this, dude.
Well, frankly, the fact that you're even covering this I mean, I don't even understand, frankly, why we're spending a lot of time on Jeffrey Epstein. The fact is he was a pedophile who was arrested. He committed suicide, and his, fixer, if you will, is being prosecuted. So at the end of the day, if there are people who were part of any crimes, then they should be prosecuted. But in the absence of that, what exactly are we looking to do? The information is there. It is well documented what he did. And beyond that, what exactly are we looking for?
The people who are raping children. Okay, that's who we're looking for. If that was your daughter, you wouldn't be so dismissive now, would you? If that had been your sister, you wouldn't be so dismissive now, would you? How about justice? That's what we're looking for. And be like, I don't understand how anyone's interested. Most popular topic all weekend. You know how disconnected you sound? You know how false and fake you sound? That'd be like getting on the radio and be like, I don't understand why there's so much interest in the Super Bowl. Oh, gee, I don't know. It's only the most popular football game every year. You don't know how the world works then. You're pretending to not know why people care about this, sir. And that makes me even more suspicious of the situation. Coming up next, you're going to hear the theory on what happens in the context with the Epstein list from Bill O'Reilly, from Tucker Carlson, and from Alan Dershowitz. And if I have time, I'm going to throw in Victor Davis Hanson. I don't know if I'll have all that time. But I would like to hear your theories as well. Is there an Epstein list? Do you care? Let's start with Tucker Carlson, who was at Turning Point USA. They had a big get-together in Tampa this weekend, and Epstein came up in his speech.
The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered. And I think it's entirely fair to ask them. And it's not adequate to say anyone who asked them is somehow desecrating the memory of little girls who died in Texas. They're not going to put up with that answer. I don't care who gives that answer. That is not acceptable. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that.
There's Tucker Carlson's take. Here is Bill O'Reilly. He was on with Chris Cuomo's show. I think it's on News Nation this weekend. Here's his context.
Well, I think President Trump could correct it anytime he wants to correct it. And that's the question is I don't know why he doesn't. So all you got to do is say to the Attorney General, you're going to hold a press conference. You're going to tell him generally what we've learned about the Epstein case in a very methodical way. You'll answer some questions. You're not to mention any names because that could destroy people. I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that. You can't destroy human beings by putting out the files, whatever they may be. But you certainly can have Attorney General Bondi say, this is what we know. And, you know, we're going to protect the innocent. And he's a heinous individual. In that press conference, sitting next to Pam Bondi, should be Merrick Garland, the Attorney General and Joe Biden, who had this material for 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Biden had it. Yeah, you don't hear that from the left, do you?
So great points. I don't agree with either one of them on some of the nuances of their points, but generally speaking, we should be allowed to ask more questions and get more answers in this. And I'm not too concerned about people that might get rolled up into this who didn't do anything wrong. Well, they're just on the flight logs, or they went to the island, they didn't do anything, and whatever. Release the info. We'll figure it out. We'll look. If it's not, if they're clear, then clear them. Let us know who the bad guys are, and we won't have to worry about this. This is solved by more transparency, not by opacity. All right, you're still going to hear from Alan Dershowitz and Victor Davis Hanson, but I've got some great calls lined up. Let's hear what Elizabeth and Electra. You're on WBAP.
Okay, hey Parker. I don't have like a fixed idea or my own theory, but I do have questions and observations. Number one, you mentioned it early on, was biblically historical slavery. Anybody who knows the Bible and scriptures and anything that involves slavery or even sex slavery, possible sex trafficking, like in the case of Joseph, where his brothers sold him into slavery and the Bedouins took him to Egypt.
Yep.
And then connected with U.S. Civil War and assassinations, and why they who assassinated and who paid them and was behind them felt so strongly about the slavery that they either wanted it to stay or they wanted it to go.
So how are you tying this to the Epstein story?
How, and then secondly, how do you prosecute, if you're a defender in a case, big international scandal case, how do you get the case thrown out against you or dismissed? What's one way that you can do that? And I'm just theorizing with what's going on. We know that there's corruption in our government. Is it corrupt officials that are trying to push the list out so that the case or an investigation that may be ongoing gets thrown out and ruined? That's a question. Then there's all the scandals and all the corruption, etc., the trafficking, child trafficking, Epstein, over and over. Other people who have done heinous crimes that have walked with hardly a slap on the wrist. That's rocked our nation and the international community. How does that happen and why? Because for that to happen, it involves elected officials, law enforcement. It involves people in power. How do they walk? And then there's the other thing here, just thinking about Epstein girls being matched by Epstein to head the state. And then you think about Hollywood's or HBO's TV series, Game of Thrones. The first time I saw that, and I watched it because somebody on social media had made a political statement involving that Hunger Games. I wanted so badly to understand what they had said that I watched those movies. I got them and watched them, and I was shocked at the level of depravity in Hunger Games, and the idea that, although it hankers back to Rome and the Colosseum and the games back then, but Game of Thrones, the guy that was a pimp that pimped out women, elite women, to elite heads of state. I mean, where do they get these ideas? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's Littlefinger, and in basically every history book ever, and that's great context from Elizabeth and Electra. Well, when you find out about when you read like Roman history that you brought up, how many of those guys were pedophiles? How many of those went to the island of Capri and had little 11-year-old boys picked out for them? Tiberius, just starting there with the second emperor. It's kind of an uncomfortably normal thing that happens over and over. Not with everyone that's in a position of power, not with every head of state, but there's sort of this personality that's drawn to these positions of powers that also shares like the psychopathic, if not sociopathic, tendencies. And it leads down this same weird path, you know, like how did Puff Daddy get into underage girls and all this weird freak off stuff? You know, does it come with the territory, or does that territory attract these kinds of people? Don't care. I want them all in jail. All right, you'll hear from Victor Davis Hanson, Alan Dershowitz, and more Epstein theories from callers next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.